In the span of just 48 hours, Russia's military aviation found itself under an uncomfortable spotlight after two separate, deadly incidents shook confidence in the safety and reliability of its air forces. One involved the crash of a military aircraft during routine operations, the other a disturbing accident connected to a frontline combat plane. While officials were quick to stress that investigations are ongoing and details remain limited, the timing and similarity of these events have raised serious questions that go far beyond the loss of individual aircraft or personnel. Together, they offer a revealing snapshot of the pressure currently bearing down on Russia's armed forces. The first incident unfolded with little warning. Initial reports indicated that a Russian military aircraft went down during what was described as a standard flight. Local authorities confirmed casualties, while defense officials moved quickly to seal off the crash site and limit the flow of information. As is typical in such cases, early statements emphasized technical failure as a possible cause, while firmly ruling out hostile action. For hours, official channels offered only sparse updates, leaving analysts and observers to piece together a rough timeline from scattered regional reports and eyewitness accounts. Within a day, before the dust had fully settled from the first tragedy, a second aviation-related accident emerged. This time, the incident was linked to a frontline aircraft operating in a high-pressure environment closely associated with ongoing military operations. Details were again scarce, but what stood out immediately was that this was not a simple ground mishap or minor malfunction. The accident was serious enough to cause fatalities and damage a key piece of military hardware. Once more, the official response followed a familiar pattern: acknowledgement without depth, assurances of investigation, and appeals against speculation. Looking at the timeline side by side, the proximity of these events is impossible to ignore. Military aviation accidents do happen in every country, even among the most advanced air forces. But two fatal incidents involving operational aircraft in such a short window naturally prompt questions about systemic issues. Are these isolated coincidences, or do they reflect deeper problems tied to maintenance cycles, pilot training, logistical strain, and the relentless tempo of operations? Early reports suggest several possible contributing factors, though none have been conclusively confirmed. Technical failure remains the most commonly cited explanation, a broad category that can include everything from aging airframes and worn components to manufacturing defects and inadequate repairs. Russia's military aircraft fleet includes many platforms designed decades ago, some of which have undergone repeated upgrades rather than full replacement. Keeping these aircraft airworthy requires a steady supply of parts, skilled technicians, and sufficient downtime, conditions that may be increasingly difficult to guarantee. Training is another critical element under scrutiny. Military pilots rely on regular flight hours to maintain proficiency, especially when operating complex or high-performance aircraft. At the same time, rushed or reduced training can increase the risk of human error. If experienced pilots are rotated out, reassigned, or lost, newer crews may be pushed into demanding roles faster than ideal. Even small mistakes can become fatal when combined with mechanical issues or challenging flight conditions. Logistics and supply chains also play a quiet but decisive role. Aviation maintenance depends on consistent access to quality components, specialized tools, and technical documentation. Disruptions in supply, whether due to economic constraints, sanctions, or organizational inefficiencies, can lead to improvisation, delayed repairs, or extended use of parts beyond their intended lifespan. None of this guarantees an accident, but it raises the baseline level of risk across an entire fleet. The operational environment itself cannot be ignored. Frontline aircraft operate under intense pressure, often flying frequent missions with limited recovery time for both crews and machines. High sortie rates accelerate wear and tear, while stress and fatigue affect human performance. When combined with the fog of war and the urgency of real-world missions, the margin for error narrows dramatically. In such conditions, even a minor oversight can cascade into disaster. Official statements have consistently urged patience, emphasizing that investigations take time and that premature conclusions are unhelpful. This is, in principle, a reasonable position. Aviation accident investigations are complex processes involving wreckage analysis, flight data recorders, maintenance logs, and interviews with personnel. However, the lack of transparency also fuels skepticism, especially when similar explanations are repeated after each incident without clear evidence of reform or accountability. The phrase, accident, itself has become increasingly loaded. While accidents are by definition unintentional, patterns matter. When incidents recur with growing frequency, they begin to suggest structural problems rather than random misfortune. Analysts note that over time, a steady stream of aviation mishaps can erode confidence within the ranks. Pilots, technicians, and support crews are acutely aware of risks, and repeated losses can have a chilling effect on morale. Safety and readiness are tightly linked. An air force that is forced to ground aircraft for inspections after each incident loses operational flexibility. Conversely, one that pushes ahead without meaningful corrective measures risks further losses. Finding the balance between caution and capability is a challenge even in peacetime. Under sustained operational pressure, it becomes exponentially harder. Morale is an often underestimated factor. For personnel on the ground, every crash is not just a headline but a reminder of personal vulnerability. Trust in equipment, leadership, and procedures is essential for effective operations. When that trust is shaken, the psychological impact can linger long after physical damage is repaired. Families of service members, too, watch these developments closely, adding another layer of societal pressure. Internationally, such incidents are closely observed. Military aviation is a visible symbol of technological competence and strategic power. Repeated accidents invite scrutiny and speculation from foreign analysts, who look for signs of weakness or decline. Even if conclusions are exaggerated, perception itself can influence strategic calculations and diplomatic postures. It is important, however, to separate confirmed facts from assumptions. At present, many details about these two incidents remain unverified. Investigations may ultimately reveal unrelated causes, from rare component failures to unexpected environmental factors. It is entirely possible that no single systemic flaw links the events. Responsible analysis requires acknowledging uncertainty alongside concern. Still, the broader context cannot be ignored. Sustained military operations place extraordinary demands on people and machines alike. Over time, stress accumulates, shortcuts become tempting, and resilience is tested. Aviation, with its unforgiving physics, often exposes these pressures first. Crashes are not just tragic endpoints, they are warning signals. What happens next will matter more than the initial explanations. Will investigation findings be made public in meaningful detail? Will recommendations translate into changes in maintenance practices, training standards, or operational tempo? Or will these incidents be quietly absorbed into a growing list of losses, mentioned briefly before attention shifts elsewhere? For now, these back-to-back tragedies serve as a stark reminder that behind every aircraft are layers of human effort and institutional responsibility. They highlight the thin line between routine operations and catastrophe, especially in times of strain. Whether viewed as coincidence or symptom, the events of these 48 hours underscore a simple truth. Military aviation safety is not just about machines, but about systems, and when systems are stretched, the consequences can be fatal. As more information emerges, the full picture may become clearer. Until then, the facts we do have point to an air force operating under intense pressure, where accidents are no longer isolated anomalies but part of a troubling pattern that demands careful, unsensational, and honest examination.